Okay, welcome to our tutorial on SolidWorks drawings. This tutorial is going to make the assumption that you have created all of your part files for your puzzle cube. You have done your assembly and you have also done the explosion of your assembly in the assembly file. So before we get started, let's go over what this tutorial will be about. First, we are going to create the drawing file, set up sheets, and delete the current title block. We will talk about inserting your views and changing the display state. We are going to dimension the drawings and do all kinds of the annotation with the bill of materials and the bubbles that you see down here on the bottom left of your exploded assembly. So let's get started. I am going to go to New and select Drawing, and I can either double click or I can click and press OK. And then it's going to ask me what size paper that I want to use. In engineering or drafting or architecture, there are different size papers for different applications. An A size paper is your standard 8.5 by 11 sheet. B is twice that size, so that would be a 11 by 17, and then each of the corresponding sizes multiply from there. The E size paper is anything larger than a D size paper, so that's generic. We're just going to go ahead and stick with a NC size landscape, 8.5 by 11, basically your printer size paper. Go ahead and make sure display sheet format is checked and press OK. Now you will notice that this title block is here, and you also will notice that I have opened up my part files, and that's why they are displayed over here on the side. For right now, we are going to just press the red X to get out of the model view, and then on sheet 1 I am going to click and then slow click a second time, and we're going to turn on caps lock and call this our cover sheet. Actually, I don't like the word cover. The industry, somewhat standard, is front sheet. Okay, and then we are going to add new sheets, and I did that by right clicking on the front sheet, pressing add sheet, and I am going to repeat that until I have 6 total sheets. And that is going to be 1 for our cover sheet and then 1 for each of our puzzle pieces. So that's our front sheet plus our 5 puzzle pieces. And then on each one of those, you will also notice that down here it creates a tab for me, so I can move between sheet by selecting these tabs. Alternatively, I can right click on the sheet and select activate. Okay, we have this title block, and the title block in industry is used for documentation purposes. So the title would be the title of the drawing. It gives me the size of the paper, a drawing number, which generally comes from the name of the file, a revision number, so if I did a design and then something happened where a size had to be changed, a hole had to be moved, any kind of modification, I would create a revision, and the first revision would be revision 1, 2, so on and so forth. Drawn by would be your name. Checked would be a coworker or a manager that would check it. Engineering, manufacturer, quality assurance. And anyway, this is mostly just for good information. You can check this out and see what information would be included. Companies all create their own unique title blocks. Usually has their company logo in it or any other identifying information. For right now, we're not going to worry about a title block, so we are going to click down here on the sheet and do Edit Sheet Format. And you will notice everything on the sheet is highlighted in blue except for this black border and the numbers and letters down the side. So I'm going to press Control A to select everything, and then I'm going to press Delete to get rid of that title block. I can then select this icon in the upper right hand corner to close that, and I'm going to repeat that for each of my sheets, the 5 sheets plus the front sheet. And again, that is right click, Edit Sheet Format, Control A and Delete, and then press this button to go back. So sheet 4 is good, sheet 3, again right click, Edit Sheet Format, Control A, Delete, and go back. We've got 3 more times. So activate, right click, Edit Sheet Format, Control A, Delete, go back, twice more, Edit Sheet Format, Control A, Delete, go back. Last time, Edit Sheet Format, Control A, Delete, and return. Okay, so all of our sheets are now set up, and we can begin inserting our views. So our cover sheet is the kind of the cover page of a book. It's what the whole thing is about. The manufacturer, the engineer, the architect, whatever it happens to be, wants to see the entire assembly put together, and that's what your cover sheet is. The sheets after that are going to be for each of your parts that are included in that assembly. So if you're not already, you should be on View Layout, and we are going to select Model View. Okay, these are our part files, but we want to insert our assembly first. So I'm going to click on Browse, and down at the bottom here where it says Part, I can select Assembly or SolidWorks files, and that's going to allow me to select parts or assemblies. We'll go ahead and pick on that, and I'm going to use Puzzle Cube Assembly. Press Open. And you will notice this dialog box comes up on my Properties Manager. And I'm going to stick with Front View and press Preview. And that will give me a depiction of what my front view looks like. And then if we select this down arrow, actually I'm sorry, Display Style here, on our cover sheet we are going to have all of our views shaded. On most technical drawings, which you'll see for each of the parts, your orthographic projections or views will be used with hidden lines visible. And then we will do an isometric drawing up here, which will be shaded. But for right now, we are going to do all shaded. And that looks like it's going to be a little big for 6 views. So I am also going to select Use Custom Scale. And I can use any of these that are provided, or I can do the user defined. And I'm going to choose 1.5 to 1. So you'll notice that brings my front view down a little bit smaller, and I can place that anywhere on this paper for right now. And you'll notice that as I do that and move my mouse across the screen, it will change to one of my other orthographic views. So I'm going to move my mouse to the right and click to give my right hand view. Do the same thing to the left, and that will give me my left view, my top, my bottom, and finally my isometric. My isometric I'm actually going to place twice, which you will see in a minute. And then finally I'm going, well, not finally, but I am going to get my back view by selecting projected view and choosing my left hand side and dragging to the left, which will give me my back view. Now, the last view that we need, that we talked about before, is our exploded assembly. So you will notice that I have two identical assembly views in isometric. I've selected the second one and dragged it down here to the bottom left, and I am going to select this box that says show an exploded or model break state. And I apparently have three exploded views, so I am going to go ahead and select that. And once these are in, I can begin positioning them so that they are kind of more clear. So my isometric, I'm going to move up here to the top right. My right side view, notice these are orthographic, so my right side view I can move back and forth, but I cannot move out of alignment up and down. So I'm going to move that to my right. My front view, on the other hand, is what we call our parent view, which means it's the first view that I placed, and I can move that up and down or left to right, and you'll notice the views in line move with it as they should. So I'm just going to kind of place these where they belong, evenly spaced. And then I'm going to take, and my exploded assembly, I want to make slightly smaller. So I'm going to use custom scale again, and I am going to make that user defined, and we're going to do 1.25 to 1. Excuse me for a minute. Okay, next step is to balloon these out. And a balloon is just basically giving it a label. So to do that, I am going to go to annotation, and about a little left of midway is this balloon. So I'm going to select balloon, and then on my exploded isometric, I'm going to click on each piece. Notice I'm clicking at the middle of the face, and what that's going to do is give me a dot instead of an arrow. The other general rule of thumb with exploded assemblies and ballooning is you do not want this leader line to be horizontal or vertical. It is always going to be at some sort of angle other than those two, and placed a decent amount away. So again, click in the center, and then click off to the side. Repeat the same thing so that you have all 5 of your puzzle pieces. And then press escape. And those are also going to be our page numbers in just a second. So our next step is to complete our bill of materials. And I'm going to do that by going to Tables. And the third option is Bill of Materials. And I'm going to select a view. In this case, it doesn't matter which. Press the green check mark. And then I'm going to dock that. Notice it sticks to the borders and to the corner. I do want to modify this. First of all, you'll notice I've got item number, and that corresponds to our exploded assembly down here. I've got a part number, which corresponds to the name of the part that I gave it. I've got a description, which I could fill in, and a quantity. Generally speaking, when you've got a more complex part, say we were to do a toy car and it had 2 wheels on the truck bed, then I would only bubble one of those, but it would display a quantity of 2. So I do not need a description in this case, and I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to right click. Let's try that again. I'm going to right click where it says C, and I am going to delete, not that. Okay, try that again. Highlight C, left click, and I am going to delete the column. Okay, now you'll notice quantity becomes my column C. I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to insert a column to the right. In column D, I can double click, and with caps lock on so that I match my other parts, I am going to type page. So my red is going to be page 2. Double click again. My blue will be page 3. My green will be page 4. Light blue, page 5. And pink, page 6. Okay, so we have our bill of materials, we have our exploded assembly with bubbles, we have our views, which I realize I keep playing with these. You can move them around until you're happy, but the last thing we need is dimensions for our overall dimensions of our cube. So again, under annotation, I'm going to select Smart Dimension, and then I'm going to select the right-hand side to the left-hand side and click the top pi. The pi on dimensioning simply places it in its correct location. When you get into drafting and standards, there are standards that dictate the distance from the object to the dimension, where dimensions are placed in relation to the object, all kinds of different stuff. SolidWorks has actually taken some of that off of our hands as the designer, and they've given us this nice little pie piece that correctly places them. So I'm going to choose the top to place my dimension between the front view and the top view. I'm going to do the same thing for a height dimension, and then also for the depth dimension. I could also have put my depth dimension on a side view, which I can show you how to change that. So if I want to delete this dimension, I can click on it, just simply press the delete key, select Smart Dimension again, select the two sides and press up, and I've got a new depth dimension, and I like that one better because it kind of unclutters up here where my isometric drawing is. Okay, so your front sheet is now done, and we also have our page numbers for each of our pieces. You'll notice my front sheet over here is populated with each of the drawings that I've done, and I am going to slow click. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to stay on my front sheet, and on sheet 1 I'm going to slow click, and I'm going to rename sheet 1 as red because it is my second page. Sheet 2 is going to be blue. Sheet 3, green. Sheet 4, light blue. Sheet 5 is my pink sheet. Okay, so now we have our sheet set up, and we can simply go ahead and start placing our views. So I'm going to go to my sheet from my red tab. I'm going to select View Layout and Model View. And this is my red, so I'm going to make sure the red is selected. And I'm going to double click on it. And make sure Preview is selected so you can actually see what that view is going to look like. And I can take a look at it just by simply turning. And we are going to select Hidden Lines Visible. Okay. So I'm going to select or place my front view by clicking, and then I'm going to place my top view, and if I needed it I could also place my right side view. However, I don't think it adds anything to the drawing, and we have a hidden line, therefore I'm not going to include it, but I can include my isometric view. And press Escape. Now, to make this appear solid and in our shaded state, I simply select it, and under Display Style I am going to select Shaded with Edges, and you'll notice that our last objective on each sheet is to place our dimensions. So we will go to the Annotation tab again and select Smart Dimension, and I need to add all the dimensions necessary that I could either produce or redraw this part. So there's a couple things that you need to know. Number one is that dimensions should be placed on the view that is the most descriptive of its shape, should be placed generally between the views unless necessary to move it out, and that shorter dimensions should be nested inside the longer dimensions. So I will show you how to do that. First of all, this is my characteristic view for kind of the top view, and I can see this depth. So I'm going to start by dimensioning it there, and I'm going to use my pie shape to place it, and then I'm going to select this line and that line to place my 0.5. Dimensions should also be grouped when possible. So group simply means that they are on the same side, as long as it's clear. The whole thing about drafting and engineering and documentation is clarity. So as long as it's clear what this is dimensioning, it's pretty much good. On my front view, I'm going to give the width of this jut out, which is also the width of this jut out on the top, the block that extends from the front. And then the other side, simply because I like symmetry. And then I'm going to select that edge and this edge and drag it up. The other benefit of putting the 0.25 here and here is that my 0.75 is more clear due to the fact that it's centered and there's nothing below it. My last objective is my height dimensions. So I need to know how far in this indentation cuts. So I'm going to select my top line, and I'm going to select that inside line and use my pie shape. And then I'm going to select my outside edge and choose the pie shape. Now, you'll notice that if I scroll in, this 0.5 aligns with this line, which is called an extension line. That is a little unclear, and to fix that, I simply click on the number, hold down my mouse button, and drag it below that line so that it is more clear. And then I continue on with each of my parts. And I think hopefully that is a help and you can figure it out. I will be back on Tuesday and check your work. So hope you enjoy, have a great day with the sub, and I will see you Tuesday.